Hello and welcome back to the Low to High podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Sullivan. I'm here today with the one and only Ann Evans. How are we, Ann?
We're doing pretty well, everybody.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. For today's episode, we have the ridiculously talented Cori Conner of CA Ties and Dyes. Cori has a very successful stringing and dyeing business, and we're excited to talk about your skills today. How you doing, Cori?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
We're really excited about it. You sent us a very cool present, Ann.
Yeah,
tell the people, because I don't know.
It was so sick. I had thought about it. Like, I was like, I'm going to reach out to her and be like, maybe she can make us a custom head. But then she was like, no, let me do it. Like, I have a whole head here. Let me just, like, make this, like, really cool freaking lacrosse head for you guys that has your logo on it. Like, I don't know. I was a little starstruck. I was like, wow, someone made that for us.
That is cool. That's the first thing other than stickers. Well, that's the first thing that we haven't made.
Yeah.
That has our
we've
logo.
Been gifted.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate
it.
And it's up on our Instagram if you want to go take a look at it.
Yeah.
We'll do like a pro photo shoot with it.
Yeah,
we'll both get out our DSLRs and just walk around it and say, pose, stand still. All right, you're looking good.
You should give me some pointers because I'm terrible at taking photos.
Well, if you send us a men's one, I mean, we'll do a full photo shoot.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just kidding.
Get the poses and everything.
Yeah.
No.
But
Yeah.
no, it's
sorry, I have 3 dogs and I think somebody's walking in front of the house or something.
That is okay. We are a pro dog podcast.
Yes.
We both have dogs.
We love lax dogs.
We do.
It's like the sidewalk is not public domain, it's our domain, and if you're on the sidewalk, you're going to get some barking and you're going to know that it's not okay that you're on our sidewalk. I think it's what goes through their mind.
But they can't do anything about it. They're just standing there like, hey, you get out of here.
Yeah. And then eventually when the person walks by, they're like, oh, okay. And then they go back to normal.
We did it. Good job, guys.
But let's just start off with some general lacrosse questions. Why don't you give us a little bit about your lacrosse background, how you got into this sport, and kind of like your journey throughout the entire sport?
Okay, so I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I wasn't born there, but I spent like most of my childhood years there. I don't remember anything before that. And I started playing lacrosse when I was 8. I think my mom put me in like the CYO league that was around. I think at the time that was like the only youth league that we had in our area. And I remember seeing video footage of like me in these ugly plaid blue and gold kilts. And like collared, no sleeve shirts. Like, oh man, I'm so glad those are not a thing anymore.
I'm glad I got into the game after that.
And I played I played all through middle school and high school. I didn't really have a lot of direction, I guess, in high school, so I didn't take it as seriously. I love playing lacrosse. And I ended up playing goal pretty much my entire high school career, which wasn't my intention. Kind of like came upon me in a weird way with like our other goalie leaving, and me just happening to be like the biggest person on the field. So I think the coach was like, hey, go take up as much space as you can. And I ended up loving it, and I felt like I got pretty good at it. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of direction. I feel like I maybe could have gone to college to play, but nobody ever really talked to me about it. My mom wasn't like really into going to play sports in college, so I think it just like didn't really happen because I didn't know any better. I saw some friends and some girls in like older classes go to play, but I thought that was like special and like the coaches had to come reach out to you or something. So I ended up playing club at the University of Nevada in Reno, which is a D2 with the WCLA, and it was great. I went for molecular microbiology and immunology, so club gave me the time to also focus on academics, but still play lacrosse. We traveled all over the West Coast mostly. And I helped start some clubs up there as well in Nevada and like all over the West Coast. Obviously, it's a newer sport. And people are seeing it, but I even had girls like on my college campus ask me what my lacrosse stick was if I was walking around with it. They'd be like, what is that? And Okay, hold on. I think somebody's in my house.
Okay, you might want to check on that. Yes.
I think it could be like a plumber or something because I'm renovating.
Okay.
But I wasn't expecting him to come today, so.
All right,
sorry.
we'll pause.
Please check.
It's okay.
I'm just gonna relocate so that he can work.
Okay.
People are gonna be like, "Why did the background change?"
Yeah.
Retracing the steps.
So when I was playing in Reno, there were a lot of high schools that wanted to start teams but just didn't really know how. And there's a shortage of coaches and people that really knew anything about the sport. So we had a relationship with a lot of the local high schools and the college where the college girls would go like coach the teams, and then we'd also like ref other teams' games as well because there was no officials association at the time. So that was really fun. I lived there for 7 years and ended up successfully starting clubs in all of the 11 high schools that were like in the major Reno area. They weren't sanctioned yet by the school, so technically it was considered a club. And, you know, we did have to do a little fundraising and,
know the struggle.
You know,
that was my
like
whole high school career. Yeah.
Uniforms, but it was weird to me, just, I guess, being spoiled and coming from New York because I didn't have to pay to play. Like, it was a school thing. So if you wanted extra swag, okay, you had to pay, and that made sense. But, you know, I got a uniform from the school for basketball, for volleyball, for lacrosse, whatever. So, you know, these girls, I think, were a little more used to the pay-to-play thing just because sports in general in schools were a little newer. Even, like, the volleyball team wasn't sanctioned, which I thought was interesting.
What? Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's a strange one, I'll be honest.
I
only
know,
in
right?
lacrosse have I seen, like, the club level high school sports, and that was, yeah, so, like, that's weird. Where were you when
Nevada.
this was? Nevada?
Yeah.
Reno, yeah.
I do. Oh, yeah.
like-
I mean,
It's not anywhere
yeah.
near Vegas. Contrary to what everybody thinks.
No,
like,
I know.
I say Nevada, they're like, oh, Vegas. I'm like, no, it's like an 8
no,
hour
yeah,
drive.
it's very far away, actually. It's a huge state.
Yeah, so that was really awesome. And I know that the schools up there are still playing, and I think some of them have actually managed to get them sanctioned by the school district, which is great. So I've lived in California since July of 2017, which will be a little bit over 3 years. And I've been coaching here locally at the youth level with like super young kids, U8, U10, U12. We go even numbers on this side of the coast for whatever reason. Shush. Oh my God, my emails right now.
You're just a busy lady. We appreciate your time.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just one of those things where I have like that inconvenient, and whenever I'm trying to do something, you can't actually.
Everything happens
Yes.
at once, yeah.
So, yeah, last year I coached youth, or last season, I guess, that we didn't end up finishing our full season.
Yeah.
Which was really fun until it ended. I had never coached that young of an age group before consistently and actually been like the head coach. So that was definitely a learning experience. And I think it's going to help me next season with my high school girls, just kind of knowing what the 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds were like, and then being able to translate that. Oh, okay, well, the high school girls should be a little more mature and blah, blah, blah. Like, should being the key word there.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so I actually just got hired to coach a local high school called Marin Academy. And thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited
I think
about
we have
it.
a button that does it. Like,
We don't know the buttons yet.
We don't know the button.
So I'll just do it manually, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. So right now, that's kind of where I'm at in my lacrosse career, mostly coaching. Occasionally, there are adult tournaments out here for like 25 and over that I can play in. Normally over the summertime, there's a couple, but there hasn't been any recently. There's one in Arizona that's like still on. So I'm crossing my fingers. Not that it's really safe to go to Arizona right now, but I really want to play lacrosse. So.
Yeah.
Now, when you go, are you playing field or are you playing goal? Like
I play field now.
Okay.
Every goalie besides the true psychos do that in the end of their career. They switch to field.
Yeah, what happened was I went to college and I played field the first 2 years, or I played goalie, the first 2 years since I had played in high school. And obviously goalie is the hardest position to find somebody that wants to play.
Yes.
And when I became a junior, we had 2 incoming freshmen that wanted to play goal. And I had like gone on the field and played before just for fun or what have you. And my coach knew that I had played field in the past. So he's like, "Yeah, you want to like play field?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so out of shape." Like,
running.
so he's just like standing in the goal. And, like,
Yeah.
So my last 2 years of college, I played field and mostly did the draw and then dropped back on D and let somebody cross over on attack unless I like won the draw control myself. But that was when I was in the prime of my physical career. And now it's like you're at a tournament with a bunch of like 25 to 40-year-olds. It's kind of like the span of ladies I play with. And everybody's like, "Who wants to play mid?"
And no one.
That's funny.
So we kind of try to like rotate through since we know that we're all old and slow. And
Yeah. I love coaching youth though. That's always fun. And truly congratulations on the coaching job. I really want to coach at some point in all of this. I do I coach middle school now, but you know, I want to get like a full head coaching high school job somewhere and maybe get like a travel team together or something.
Yeah.
Sully squad. Yeah. All right. Well, we can talk a little bit about ties and dies now. Or well, actually, I will ask you if you have a pregame meal or routine, or are you superstitious in any way? We find that usually the people who grew up with the sport in a younger age had some superstition at least once in their career.
I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, but I definitely have a routine.
Just a little stitious.
I mean, here's the thing. I guess I should say I am superstitious because I've never not done this routine, so I don't know if not doing it causes me to lose or be worse. Since high school, and it's actually funny. I think I remember Christina mentioning this in her session. We had this thing where we put our hair up in like Mickey Mouse buns. We called them power buns. And at the time I had hair like down to my butt. So I had to braid it and then like have one of my friends like, and it was this huge like bun, like Leia buns, but up here on the top of my head. And to this day, I still play with power buns, even at 28 years old. I don't care if I look like an idiot. I still play with power buns.
But your hair's shorter now, so it's probably a bit more manageable.
So it's a lot easier to manage, yes.
How much do you think those weighed when you had it that long? Like, that's at least like 5 pounds.
Yeah, it was. They were heavy.
Like a pound, yeah.
Maybe. Hair weighs more than you think.
It actually turned out to be really practical because my hair like never came out and got in my face or got stuck in my goggles. And it was always like the perfect position for your goggle band. I put one on top and one underneath.
Yeah.
And again, I guess routine, like one on top, and that just ended up being like the perfect plan. When I wear ponytails, I play at practice or something, it's like falling. I'm like constantly tightening it. I'm like, this is so stupid.
We call them space buns. Like
so
Princess
space
Leia.
buns, power buns, and then I always wear white calf socks and white cleats.
I see.
Yeah, you got to wear white with white. If you go white and black, it's just why. If you play for the Naval Academy, that's the only acceptable reason.
Yeah.
All right.
And I have to wear the long socks. I don't know how people play in crew socks.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
So
Yeah, ankle socks are just they always slide down into my cleat, and I hate it.
I mean,
that's the worst.
I personally, I don't like playing with. I like playing with like high cleats, like cleats that protect my ankles because I got weak ankles, and them things will snap if they do not have protection.
The Under Armour highlights. So Under Armour, reach out, please.
I don't understand how people, first of all, wear high tops and don't wear high socks because that's just like uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, it would like rub.
Just
That's too funny.
weirdos. All right, we love you all the same. If you're
Yeah.
one of them.
I
All
definitely
right.
have some friends that wear
Yeah.
big socks.
Don't worry, we love you all, but get it together. We're worried about you. This is our PSA. So what? All right. So you have a successful stringing and dyeing company. But what was it that really made you think like I can do this? Like I want to make this something that I do that I'm passionate about and I enjoy.
That's actually a super good question. And honestly, I probably didn't come to that conclusion until shortly after everything started shutting down for COVID. Where I am out here, it was like mid-March. I think it was pretty consistent across the country, but it was like mid-March when everything kind of shut down. And then a page on Instagram called Lax Traders for Autism with the letter 4, oh my gosh, number 4. It's still early here, okay?
It's okay. You have a plumber in your house. It's all confusing. Go ahead.
He posted this thing about wanting to do like a COVID kind of joking like Dyer's Cup competition. And I had really only dyed single colors, maybe 2 colors. I hadn't done any vinyl work at all. I was in the very basic like realm of dyeing. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to try because it sounds like fun. We were still not working at the time because it was at that moment where we weren't sure if we were essential or not and if we were allowed to work. So I actually had time on my hands, which is not very common. And I did this competition. I ended up winning, which compared to some of the people I was with that had been doing it for a long time, I was like, wow, no way. Like, this is crazy. And then after that, that was kind of like the aha moment. Like, wow, if I actually put time into practicing and learning some of these techniques, I might be like okay at it. Mm-hmm. I was always, a stringer. I've strung since I was in high school, but there's so many new things like having to basically teach myself how to string mesh now because mesh wasn't around when I was in high school and in college. It wasn't legal for ladies yet. Mm-hmm. So now I have all these ladies that say, hey, can you string mesh? And I'm like,
kind of.
We'll see.
I had to, yeah, right. We'll see. I had to teach myself how to string mesh and, ask. The great thing about Instagram is that there's so many people that are willing to help you out. So, I can definitely attribute a lot of what I've learned to those guys and some of the people that I've met on the internet.
Internet friends.
So I would say after I kind of won that competition, I said to myself, okay, like, do I have the time commitment to make something of this? And the main reason why I started stringing on Instagram on the West Coast was that girls out here I don't think they have the education for sticks that some of the girls back east do just because it's not as big of a sport. And a lot of them don't understand that you don't have to play with the generic stick you buy off the shelf at Dick's Sporting Goods or Big Five or what have you. And that your pocket can really make a difference and impact your play. And for the younger girls especially, I think the generic sticks are a little bit of a downer because sometimes they have trouble passing and catching with it if it's too tight or it's just not really strung that well, and then it makes them not want to play. So that was my biggest kind of motivation was like, how can I spread the word in just my general area in Northern California that the strings are important and it really can impact the girls' play and therefore your mental status about the sport. So I kind of segued into that going, all right, well, if I can make some really cool, unique stuff that's going to stick out and that's going to grab people's eyes, that's going to be easier for me to kind of push the education that I'm trying to spout out there and spread the word for custom stringing and dyeing and how much of a difference it really can make.
Yeah, that goes back to our conversation with Sidewall Jedi. He and I talked a lot about that on the men's side, but yeah, we also talked some about the women's side at the end there, but it was definitely makes a huge difference. Like not growing up, but playing my 3 years in Indiana that I played, I introduced a lot of people to stringing a stick. They just thought you bought them strung, and that was how they came. And or like some people knew you could order them from Lacrosse Unlimited and stuff like that, but there wasn't anybody in town who really strung a stick until I kind of got there. And that's not a knock on them. Nobody told them, because like you said, on the East Coast, you go to practice, you have a factory strung stick, and somebody goes, "Oh, ooh, hey there, come here, let me talk to you a second." And then they tell you, you don't want that. That is butt. Go get some mesh. I'll teach you how to string. Or go get it strung or something. On the West Coast, I'm sure, and in Indiana and some of the Midwestern states, I'm sure that's not a thing yet. Like, people aren't going up to people until somebody arrives from one of those hotbeds and says, "Hey, hold on a second. You guys need to learn about stringing because it actually really matters." So it's a good thing that you're bringing that to the area that you're in right now.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of, like, underdeveloped lacrosse communities don't have the resources, like, to get good stick strung. Like, they don't. Yeah. All they have is, like, a Lacrosse Unlimited where it's some high schoolers stringing a stick, and they don't have, like, good stringers who actually know how to make a decent pocket that doesn't bag out every time it rains or anything. Yeah, and so for sure. Like, it definitely, like, changes your game entirely, and so I think that's really important that you're bringing that to the West Coast. But how did you get into stringing? Like what kind of prompted you to be like, I want to mess around with all of this? Because I look at it and I'm like, this looks way too difficult.
She asked me to try stringing a women's stick because she doesn't want to try. And I was like, I mean, I'll give it a go, but this will be the first one I've ever done, so we'll see how it turns out.
I mean, each type of pocket is kind of like, mesh is the easiest and least time consuming. Then you go all the way up to, like, full traditional where you're, like, weaving cross lace, and that one is obviously more difficult and time consuming. But I think I got into stringing, like, my junior and senior year of high school. And at first I was just stringing my own goalie head because there was one season where I'm pretty sure we played in blizzards until, like, at the end of April. And I think my mesh was just, like, dead. I didn't know anything, like, about mesh. I couldn't even tell you what kind of mesh I had. I know I had an STX Eclipse original, like, OG, when I was in high school, and I think I had, like, the Eclipse 2 in college or something. But I would just go to Lacrosse Unlimited and buy my own mesh because I couldn't afford to have them string it and pay for the mesh. And so I would take a picture of the stick and then take all the mesh out and just, like, kind of go for it. And over time, my teammates started seeing that I was doing the goalie sticks and, like, oh, well, you know, it is kind of expensive to do it at the Lacrosse Unlimited. Like, I have strings because of whatever. Can you do my stick? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, field sticks are not anything like goalie sticks. But I think at one point I was just like, oh, yeah, sure, I know how to do that. Mm-hmm, yeah.
That's how we all start. Yeah, give me your stick and let me try on you.
So I think somebody just kind of, like, let me take it, and I probably spent hours and hours and hours, like, restringing it and redoing it until I got the pocket that I wanted. But back then, the pockets that were really popular were, like, the STX runway pocket with the little beads. There's, like, this octagonal plastic beads. Which nowadays I feel like are terrible. Yes. But back then,
everyone was like, oh, revolutionary technology.
Yeah, it's like wax mesh, stuff like that. It comes out, everyone's like, whoa, this is insane. And then it goes away because everyone's like, wait a minute, this is actually awful.
It's actually terrible. So that was, like, the big pocket for field players when I was in high school and going into college. So I got really, really good at stringing those little, like, octagonal bead runners from STX. And Brian also had one called the Paramount Pocket that had, like, this rubbery finish on it. That was kind of grippy, I guess. And that one was okay. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I probably lied and was just like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. And then, like, took somebody's stick. And after that, people were like, oh, you restrung this person's stick? Okay. And eventually they got better to the point where, like, they were actually playable.
Yeah, I think that's how we all start.
Yeah. especially when I moved to Reno, the closest lacrosse store was actually in California.
Oh my goodness.
They didn't have anything in Nevada.
That was Indiana.
So,
Yeah, never heard of that before.
yeah.
We had to go to Louisville or we had to go to Indy, and Indy just had like a one-person lacrosse store that was a very small storefront, and they had a couple sticks. Like there wasn't anything really big there.
Yeah, so it was actually easier to buy string online and get it shipped to Reno and just like have me string it for them instead of driving 3 hours to the store in California, because you couldn't get it done that day. So then you have to drive back
to pick it up.
Ready.
Make a whole trip out of it.
You're speaking exactly my story too, just on the men's side. Like I ordered ridiculous quantities of mesh and sidewall and stuff, and the way I taught myself to string was I just kept unstringing and restringing a factory strung stick until I realized like, oh, this needs to be tighter here, things like that. And then I just went to Dick's and like I would look at heads and stuff, and then people would walk in and they'd be getting gear for their first season. I'd be like, I'll string your stick. And that's how I got good at it. I would just string sticks.
Picking up people at
no, it was
stores?
really, it was very like, because that was the only place that sold lacrosse gear in Indiana, like in our area of Indiana. We were the big city with 150,000 people. And so that was it. Like there was a Dick's Sporting Goods and you could go in there, and I would go in and look at the new gear when it came in. And I just happened to be there like a couple times for like 3 people from the same team who were getting gear for their first season. And I strung all their sticks, and then the older players on their team were like, who strung those? And then they gave them my number, and then I got started with a little business there in Evansville that way. But it was weird because I outfitted all these people in entire gear sets and then also strung their sticks. And I was playing against them later that season.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, has been the coolest, like, thing to come about, like, since you've started your like dyeing and stringing business, like the coolest opportunity that you've gotten from your business?
I mean, I think that my relationship with True kind of stemmed from me beginning to put stuff on Instagram. That's kind of like another topic, since it's not necessarily a stringing thing. Like I don't string at True or string for True. But I would say, like, overall, that's probably the biggest accomplishment or, like, relationship I've been able to create. But recently, or maybe, like, in May or June, Powell Lacrosse reached out to a bunch of dyers, and we did some custom dyes on their Pioneer 2 heads that are up in what they call the wood shop.
Cool.
Which is really sweet. There's a lot of unique dyes, a lot of really awesome talent up in that little website area. And that it was pretty sweet to be considered with some of these other guys that have been doing it for years and, you know, have like 7,000 followers and like people know who they are. And I'm like this tiny little page at the time. I mean, I'm still tiny, like, let's be honest. And
no, you're on low to high. You made it big time.
I know. I'm actually like honored because of all the other guests. You guys have had some big guests.
Well, thank you. We're hoping that people will go back and listen to them as they find us, because we're growing, but we need those numbers.
Yeah, up and up.
Yeah, like a rocket.
Yeah, so
just kidding.
Probably the Powell opportunity when it comes to like related to dyeing and stringing. I didn't string any sticks for them, but I did dye a couple heads for them. And
That's cool.
That was really awesome. And, you know, now it's like on a website that you can go to and people are seeing. And they're seeing my name and other dyers' names. And so that was really fun. I was really grateful to have the opportunity because, you know, they reached out to me, which I was never expecting.
That's so cool. Really yeah, and to have your work put on display somewhere, as photographers, we both know, like, when somebody likes your work enough to pull it and put it in a prominent place, it doesn't matter who it is, it still feels really good. Like, my mom does it with my pictures. She'll put them up in the beach house and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I did that. Everybody that comes in here has to stare at my gigantic picture. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really, really happy for you that you get something like that, because that's really big recognition that what you're doing is awesome. So what was the first stick you ever dyed? And also I have another question about dyeing that I'm also just going to add in here. do you have like a machine that cuts the vinyl, or do you go and use an X-Acto knife and trace everything out like I used to do when I dyed? Because that was the worst part of it. You went and got a mirror, you got your electrical tape, you laid it all out there, and then you cut the shape out and hope not to rip it. Ooh, oh boy. So
yeah, I definitely don't have the patience for that. I invested in a vinyl cutter from Amazon. I think it's the Cricut that probably most everybody uses. And the first stick I ever dyed was actually a True Prowess. And I did like a hot glue, just kind of random psychedelic. And I dipped it in one color blue. So it was white and blue. And it just had this like weird, funky, hot glue looking pattern.
Saw a lot of those in high school. A lot of those like hot glue style patterns. Those were cool.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And I played in a couple tournaments with it, and there were some girls that were like, "Oh, that's really sweet." Like, I'm like, yeah, it was actually surprisingly more easy than I was expecting it to be.
The dyeing process isn't hard. I always found the cutting out of the things and making sure it didn't bleed. That was the hardest part for me. Masking
is for sure the most time consuming.
Yeah, it takes forever, especially if you're doing like a multiple colorway type of thing. That's actually why I just stopped dyeing things, because I did too many and I was like, this is not fun. I'm 16. I should be, going bowling or something, not at home dyeing a head.
Yeah.
I don't know. All that stuff's way above my head. It seems interesting, and I would love to somehow figure it out, but I don't know.
I'm working on ways to kind of let people more into the process itself. But as I stated previously, I'm not the most technologically savvy person on the face of the planet. So trying to work out like the phone with the tripod and like showing, it's a work in progress. I'm kind of trying to do like steps at a time, and then later on I'll try to edit it all together to be one cohesive, trying to make it short-ish. Because nobody wants to watch a 10-minute video on Instagram.
Well, but you could do YouTube, that kind of thing. I mean, it's worth it in the long run because it'll teach people how to dye, and it'll make them go, wow, this is way harder than I thought it was. I'm just going to let her do it. Because it is really difficult. It's impressive the dyes you pull off.
Absolutely.
Do you use a specific like dye brand only? Because I used to use Rit dye, but that was like the only one anybody knew back then. Is there anything else that you use?
Yeah. I will use all the brands. It just kind of depends on what kind of dye I'm trying to do and what color. So Throne has really good powders if you're going to mix the powder with like toothpaste or Vaseline and do a different type of dye instead of like dipping it.
Oh.
So Throne powder is best for like that style. Lax Dip is good because they have a really wide array of colors, and if you do it right, you can keep the dye and it'll last you about a month. So my thing is that like I can't afford to buy a $5 pack of dye or a $4 bottle of Rit every time I need a color, because I know I'm going to use that color again. So I actually have 2-gallon plastic jugs that I store my dye in, and they're white, so there's no UV penetration. That's really important for preserving the pigment and for having it not shift.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of chemistry and science to dye, and I totally geek out in it because of what I went to college for and like being a biochem major. So that's actually also equally exciting besides like doing some cool lacrosse that I'm like, oh yeah, pH shifting and like, like
science.
I'm gonna get my fiance into lacrosse this very way, because that's her exact. That's what she did too.
Just get her to dye all the sticks.
Yes, I'll get her
Rit
to dye.
is like a really still good, still solid one as well. It just depends on like what color you want, and depending on the head too. There are some heads where like the regular Rit doesn't work, and you need to buy the Rit dye more for synthetic material.
Oh.
And only that one will penetrate.
Is that like the Mirage?
A lot of the ECD heads are like that. So the DNA you need to use the synthetic, and the Rebel you need to use the synthetic. The Infinity, you can use regular grit, but you need to leave it in there longer, and that leads to sometimes more bleeding, or there's like pros and cons.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely. I'm still figuring out. Like I literally have a notepad, and if I do something I haven't done before, I'm like ready to write down what happened.
You're like a real scientist doing your science experiments.
Yeah, so that like if it doesn't work, then at least I know and I can remember say, okay, that didn't work. Let's do something else.
So was it mostly trial and error then, or did you read like synthetics need to be dyed with this, or was it just like, all right, I'm gonna dye this with the regular old RIT dye, and then you were like, that didn't work. That's an expensive mistake.
Yeah, most times, unless you're dyeing like black, you can recover from those types of issues, at least from what I've experienced. Like bleach is your new best friend, and so is rubbing alcohol. Those two things can really help you like dull the color on a dyed head, and sometimes you can get it down enough to where you can actually dye back over it and not notice. And it doesn't affect the integrity of the plastic at all, even if you soak it in there overnight. The bleach isn't going to eat away at the plastic, it's only going to eat away at the pigment.
Yeah.
But honestly, the first person I really talked to was James Cook at Seven Hills Strings. He was one of the contestants with me in that COVID Dyer's Cup for Lax Traders for Autism. And I think he did like a Michael Jordan themed dye. I'm not 100% sure, but I had a major blowout on like one of the decals that I was trying to do, and I was so upset with myself. And I messaged him, and I was like, hey, I know that we're competitors, but like, I need help. Like, I don't know. I literally was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and he was super great about giving me pointers, like, and just basically put everything he knows out there for me. We like did some video chats where I was like over the pot, like you doing my diet. He's like, no, do this or do that. Or, so I learned a lot in that first like 2 weeks during that COVID cup, and like getting to know James and having him help me with some dyeing stuff. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been trial and error. I think that I'm definitely more like technical about it because of my science background, whereas James is like, yeah, I'm just going to throw it in there. And it works, which I hate because sometimes I'm like doing all this stuff and it doesn't work. And I'm like, dang it.
You're up at night doing equations.
I mean, so, I think mostly trial and error after that first competition. And then like asking questions. If like the first time I did an ECD DNA, I had heard through the grapevine that they were weird to dye and that not every dye worked. So I just asked around, hey, I see that you've done a DNA on your page. I've heard there's some weird things about it. Like, would you mind telling me? Because I have a client that wants me to dye one and I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And I mean, for the most part, everybody is really open and willing to, give you that information as long as you ask nicely.
That's something we've always found, and we always discuss at some point in almost every episode, the accessibility of the lacrosse community at almost all levels.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's so open and loving.
Indeed.
But I think we're going to go ahead and shift into some of our segments. Our first segment is the poke and lift, which is where you tell us your favorite defensive player of all time and why.
My favorite defensive player of all time?
Yes.
It might be a goalie since you were a goalie.
Yeah. So I'm going to totally probably make a lot of people angry, but I really don't follow professional women's lacrosse too much. Especially because when I was graduating college, it like wasn't even around yet. So maybe that's why like it wasn't an option for me. So I don't necessarily like think about it.
Yeah.
But this last season, I started following the WPLL more so because I think it was good for girls to have something to look up to.
Oh, definitely.
And to see that there was an option for the ladies after college. So I was definitely really bummed when the league didn't work out. But I was able to meet Liz Hogan at LaxCon this past year, and she actually lives in the South Bay in California, so not like super far from me. And 2 years ago, when I was coaching a high school team, I coached against her team. She coaches at Sacred Heart Prep with Wendy Kreidel, and I was coaching at Novato at the time. And I think her mentality and the way she approaches the game and coaching is really relatable to me. I like to think that I approach it in a very similar manner. And even though we only chatted for maybe like 2 minutes at LaxCon, I could just tell that she was a good person and she had good intentions. You know, she wants to spread the game for good reasons. And also she's a killer goalie. Mm-hmm. So that was something, you know, when I had goalies that I was trying to train, but also trying to help field players at the same time, I would be like, hey, why don't we go watch some YouTube videos? Or, you know, because I know that Liz has put up some drills on her Instagram and some other things that the goalie specifically can do. So that's been really helpful for me as a coach because I can use those drills to kind of make sure that my goalies aren't getting bored all the time by doing the same footwork and the same hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, she's a beast. I love watching her play. Ugh.
All right, so we will move on to the box score. I know you said you don't really follow too much pro lacrosse or anything, but do you have a favorite offensive player that you ever saw? Maybe a college player who was in college when you were or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of biased because I'm going to choose somebody that I went to high school with. So, and I think Christina mentioned this. I feel bad that it's not Christina, but I really love watching Sam Apuzzo from Boston College. She was a freshman when I was a senior, so we weren't super close while we were in college or in high school. But I remember standing in the goal and taking shots from this girl as a freshman.
Being scared.
She was still this tiny, like, little beanpole. You know, I don't think she had, like, come into her body yet. And to watch her through college and see her, like, grow and just become this amazing athlete. And, like, she's not a big person, but she's strong and she's fast. And she's just got so much agility, like, I mean, it's exciting to watch her, like, do some crease rolls, and, like, that's where she likes to be, is, like, behind the crease. And I would say that, like, when I would watch the NCAA college finals, I was always rooting for BC because of Sammy.
Mm-hmm. And the trio they had there, like, when oh my gosh, it was insane. Like, I can't even get into it. Like, they just did some crazy things. But our next segment is the penalty box. What is your worst take or the thing that you get the most crap for saying or doing?
You ever fight anyone over breakfast sandwiches since you're on the West Coast now and they're burrito people?
Oh, I will say that I've pretty much lost my New York accent over the years since I've been away. And when I was living in New York, I traveled often. So I never really had that, like, thick accent. But when I say Long Island, I purposefully say it the way that a Long Islander says it.
Yes, just so they know you really are from there.
I was about to say, because I had noticed when you said that you were from Long Island, I was like, oh, she's from Long Island.
Long Island.
And then I was like, but that makes more sense.
Yeah, like Espo still has that accent, and she
does
there and talks. And I'm over here in Cali, and I say, "Oh yeah, I'm from New York." Blah blah. And they're like, "Really? I wouldn't know." I'm like, "Oh, that's from Long Island." And I
Long Island,
really purpose, and they're like, "Oh."
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Occasionally it comes out with like coffee or water or like those types of things.
Yeah, I love that.
would say the most crap I get from my friends and from other people is like when I say Long Island, they're always like big eye roll.
They're like, oh.
Yeah, Rachel had that accent last week too. She actually sounded just like my aunt who has lived in Albany her entire life. So it's just all New Yorkers. You guys there's something about you.
It's distinguishable.
It is. We can tell. Well, so no, because this one doesn't really apply to you. You're a goalie. It was going to be the moonshot, which is the worst shot you've ever taken in a game. But now you play field. So okay.
She's back and forth.
You know what? You're back and forth. So what's the worst shot you've ever taken in a game? Like mine was I took the ball all the way down the field, wound up with my pole and shot it, and it just went 90 degrees into the stands. It was awful because I was using wax mesh and a lot of whip.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think last year I played in like an expedition match game with a couple adult teams in the Bay. Rolled the crease. I brought my stick up super high because I had a defender on my right side, and I literally the goalie's helmet.
Oh no!
Like just ball right there, and it bounced like straight up in the air, like 30 feet, and I was like, "Where did it go?"
Did you say
you know,
sorry?
You're like right on top of the crease, and you always tell your players like, "Don't shoot high, don't shoot high," and the goalie's there ready, and
you're
high.
just like looking at them in the eye, and you're like, "Yeah, let me throw it right at you."
Yep.
I was never a close finisher. I was awful at. Yeah, I would hit the goalie every time because it was like, all right, I've got all this open space, but you're there. I aim at you. It was just for whatever reason I couldn't go anywhere but at the goalie.
I think I'm better up close. I have like the finesse, you know what I'm saying? Like I like to like mess around and like I'm gonna like really fake them out and like exaggerate it over here and then just like plop it in on the right side.
Not me.
Yeah.
I'm an outside shooter.
Just be a real big like asshole about it. That's how I am.
Yeah, stick it in there.
But so now we're gonna move on to some just general questions about you. What are some hobbies you have outside of the sport of lacrosse?
So I have 3 dogs, and they're all big dogs.
What type?
I love to go. Where are you guys? I have 2 German Shorthair Pointer Chocolate Lab mixes.
Oh my goodness.
They're like 65, 75 pounds. And then 1 Black Lab Aussie Shepherd mix. So he sheds like a mofo because he has a long coat of an Aussie Shepherd. His hair is just like everywhere. So they all love to chase the ball and they all love to swim, which is great. So we go hiking a lot. There's some good areas around here. I really love to snowboard in the wintertime. And then in the summertime, we go camping and we go water skiing. We have a boat and a lake that's not too far away. So that's really awesome. And lately in my adult life, I don't know where this came from, but I started picking up volleyball. And I have a lot of friends that I've made here since I moved that play volleyball, like in rec leagues or they play beach volleyball. And I kind of got reined into it one day. They're like, "Oh, you're athletic. You'll get it." I'm like, I've never hit a ball with my hands ever.
Yeah.
Like in high school, I played tennis and I played lacrosse. And like momentarily I played basketball, but it wasn't like hitting, you know, like how do I do this? Like, this is so
I'm the
weird.
same way. Like I consider myself athletic, but I've never I've always like run cross country or swim, and then I played lacrosse, and like I've never been able to like be good at like soccer or like basketball because I don't know. There's just something about but like when I have a stick to catch a ball, it's fine.
Yeah. I think the other main hobby that I have is fly fishing. It's kind of like weird, but it's something that my dad and I have been doing since I was like 8 years old. And it's a lot of fun. I really love it. People are like, "What the heck?" Like they literally think you like put a fly on the end of a hook.
No.
Not the case.
No, that's not it. I love fishing.
Yeah, I like to fish as well. You have some good rivers out there for it too.
Yeah, we do.
And plenty of nice temperatures.
My dad's real big into fishing, and one time, I've never been fly fishing before because I'm kind of traumatized because one time one of my dad's friends was fly fishing, and we were like at a sandbar or something, and I was just like young and walking around, and he like brought it back and just like it whipped me. Oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. And so now I'm just like, I'm going to stay away.
It seems like something I don't even want to try. I just wouldn't be good at it. I know it. I understand how you would flick it and all of that, but it just seems like something that I would get very annoyed with very quickly and not have the patience to get good at. So obviously we've all spent a lot of time in our houses recently, which means a lot of TV. What's your favorite current TV show? Or, well, it doesn't have to be current, but something you're watching currently. And then what's your favorite TV show of all time?
I'm actually probably in the minority of people that have actually watched less television since this whole thing happened.
We've gotten a lot of that.
I don't know. I just don't spend a lot of time in front of the TV because there's so many other things I need to be doing. But occasionally when I do, I've been watching this show called Bull on CBS with, God, what's that actor's name? He's like a trial scientist, and he partners with lawyers to like help people in really hard cases to like read the jury. And yeah, I mean, even if you just like read a synopsis or something, if you're into that kind of like Criminal Minds show, it's pretty good. I really like it, and it makes you think. So maybe that's why I'm like into that. And my favorite show of all time is Smallville, which it aired like in the late 90s, early 2000s. It had 10 seasons, and it is the like backstory to Superman.
Yeah. Okay. I remember seeing tons of commercials for it.
So it's about his like high school, college, and like a couple years after college years, like as he's growing into the person he becomes as Superman. And God, what is the actor's name? I used to know because he was like super hot. But you know, he's like in his 40s now or something, and he was probably in his 20s when he was playing like a middle school kid.
I was a little too young for that, but I saw all the commercials for it because I was born in 96, so like it was right around when I was growing up and watching TV, and I'd be like, what is this? Superman?
I have all 10 seasons on DVD if you'd like to.
Yeah, I want to borrow those, please.
I like shows like that, though. Like, have you ever heard of Gotham?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that a little bit, and I just like it because it's like, I don't know, I like backstories. I like a little bit of context.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, terrible special effects, but...
Well, yeah, of course. That's to be expected for the time.
You watch it now, and you're like, nice.
I'm going through that currently with people who, they're trying to make a lot of war movies now, and I'm a history major, and I also have a really good understanding of the physics behind aviation. And oh my God, I can only make it about 5 minutes into every single one of them. Unless Tom Hanks is in it, it's historically inaccurate every time. Because Tom Hanks cares a lot about history and he makes sure that they get it right. So unless he's in it, it's just not going to be good.
All right. What is the weirdest food item that you like?
Weirdest food item that I like? Actually, really love Brussels sprouts.
Oh, me too. He doesn't.
Like, my fiance loves them as well.
If they're cooked the right way, if you bake them in the oven and you put like some Parmesan cheese on the top, then they get crispy and they're not like this weird gooey bittery thing.
Air
but
fryer.
I really like Brussels sprouts. I have a very wide array of food. I was really fortunate when I was younger that my dad took me traveling a lot. And he basically like forced me to eat other foods.
Yeah, me
too. So I
too.
wasn't that picky kid that would only eat like chicken nuggets and mac and cheese.
Yeah, that's Anne for sure.
But I like Brussels sprouts, so it's okay.
So, I mean, there are some weird foods I definitely don't like pickled ginger.
No. Anything pickled is awful to me.
I hate pickled ginger. But I like regular pickles. Those are good.
No.
That's just weird.
Trash.
Can't trust people that don't like pickles.
Well, you obviously trust me, so we're very close to each other right now. But, all right, well, I have one that I ask every guest. What is your dream car?
Oh, well, that's easy because I already have my dream car.
Oh, sweet. What is it? Please.
It's a 2018 Mustang GT.
Ooh, so you're a car person
in
then.
Style.
It has a 6-speed. It's white on the outside, and it has red leather interior.
Oh
have you done any mods to it or anything, or are you just keeping it stock right now because it's warranted?
Yeah, I have done some mods.
Sick. Let's hear.
A couple years ago, I was dating a mechanic, so it was super easy.
Yes. Go you.
And I always loved cars, but I never had the resources to really do anything. I don't have a garage.
Yeah, that's me right now. I don't have any of the tools or garage or anything, but I want to do things to my truck.
So I basically straight pipe the exhaust.
Nice.
So when I come home at 2 a.m., the neighbors really love me.
Did you get rid of the cats?
No, I still have the cats because I live in California.
Yeah, because California law, yes.
I mean, it's loud enough though. If it were any louder, it would drone so bad on the freeway that it wouldn't even be like fun to drive. So I wanted to avoid the drone at 3,000 RPMs. But when you're like shifting gears at 2,500 and going down to third, it sounds like a monster, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. You get some back pops.
And I have done like a lot of aesthetic things. I powder coated the brake calipers red.
Nice.
And I have satin black rims now instead of the traditional like gunmetal ones that come with it. So I really like the way that looks because it just kind of for the interior that's red. My mind can't think of the word that is coming out right now.
Trim, interior trim, or interior stitching.
It complements the interior. That's what I was looking for.
Yes. Yeah. It complements it.
Complements it, yeah. And I've done like some little things to the engine, but like cool air intake.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like 20 more horsepower.
Yeah. The little things that everyone does. Yeah. They keep it within warranty.
The biggest thing that I was really set on doing that person I was dating at the time actually got me as a gift was he found a classic 67 shifter knob.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Then like they added the 4, 5, and 6 to it because at the time it only had 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And so I have one of these awesome, like, original classic shifter knobs that he was able to modify to fit my gear package. And so that's, like, kind of my baby. Like, every time I get in, I see this awesome, like, classic 67 shifter knob.
That's really, really cool.
And it was redone really well. So it looks like it had the 4, 5, 6 on it. You know, it's not just, like, drawn in with Sharpie. It's done really well. So that's probably my favorite part, honestly.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love cars. So you speaking my language. You gonna do a supercharger or a cam or headers or anything like that?
Sorry, this is a lacrosse podcast.
I know.
All right, go ahead.
Probably not.
No.
I mean, I like it the way it is.
Yeah.
And
it's got enough horse.
I'm one of those people that like if you buy anything in general, not just a car, but if you buy something that's gonna cost that much money, you should like it.
Oh, definitely.
I didn't spend $40,000 on a car to change the car.
Fair.
And the newer Mustangs come stock with like almost 430 horsepower.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
Sport package. So like, I don't need any more horsepower. I don't need to kill myself.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
That's true. I mean, I have a friend who's doing all those mods to his, and I love it. It changes the sound so much, and he wants it faster, but he always says, this is going to kill me every time he does something new to it.
Probably.
So our last question of the day for you is our ending question that we always ask everyone. What do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I should have seen this one coming because you asked Christina that.
Yes.
And all the other people. Then.
Yes.
Yeah, you've listened to all the episodes. Come on now. I'm just kidding.
I think that I would want people that I have coached, girls that I have coached, to think of me as somebody that made an impact in their lacrosse career or just their life in general. I've coached a lot of players who love lacrosse, but it's not their main sport, and they go to college to play soccer or basketball. But when somebody asks them a question about like their coaching experience or their high school experience, I want my legacy to be that I left an impression on those girls and that what I taught them was beneficial and they gained something from it.
That's nice. That's a good answer. Yeah. Do you want to plug your business and any personal socials you might have?
Sure.
And
I'll just do my business
charities.
one because my personal one basically went down the drain since I started the other one. So it's CA_Ties, the letter N, and Dies. I'm sure you guys will tag it in there. I was very not creative when I came up with that name because one day I was like, oh my God, I need to like create a name. And actually my full name is Cori Ann, which is CA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the CA came from. It just happened to also be California
That works
abbreviation, and that's kind of what it became, was like California, which is totally fine. But like, funny story, I never intended for it to be California.
That is funny.
Branding.
And now it's in my logo. So yeah, CA Ties and Dies. I'm definitely open to people just asking questions. I would love to do dies and strings, but if, a lot of times it's just like girls that need to repair a little string or something. I love doing that kind of stuff. I don't charge for shipping or anything like that. I just want to make it accessible.
Nice. Well, thank you. We appreciate it as customers.
Beautiful. You can follow me on Instagram at evans.cr2 and on Twitter at @TheNEvans.
I can be followed on Instagram for the first person that wants to follow me from this podcast at John Sullivan 20. I've not gained a single one yet. And I'm okay with that.
It could have been me. I think I followed you when I watched one of the other ones.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you. I might have thought that came into the Loda High account, but I appreciate it. All right, at John Sullivan 20 on Instagram, and I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much, Cori, for coming on, talking about your business and a little about your lacrosse background. If you want to, we would appreciate it, listener, if you would go leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out when it comes to sponsors and potential ads and stuff like that to keep this podcast coming to you live from Peace. We can be found at Loda High Pod on Twitter and at Loda High Podcast on Instagram. And we also have a website, www.lodahigh.pod.com. And we really appreciate it. Again, Cori, thank you so much. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Have a good day, listeners.